Another form of reasoning is called inductive reasoning. And in inductive reasoning, what happens is that we use some knowledge of a specific instance and then we draw some inference about that to new unknown instances. So in this case, we really try to generate or infer new knowledge based on some old knowledge we already have. The way in which this can work is, for example, by category-based inductions. What happens here is that we know a couple of few known instances of something and then generate it to all instances. So for example, maybe we are big football fans and we saw that Rutgers won the last game. Therefore, we induce or we infer that Rutgers always wins their football games. That's a general induction. Another kind of induction is one that's more specific. So for example, we know some specific instances and then we generalize those to other kinds of these specific instances. So for example, maybe the Eagles lost the past 2 games against the Bears. Therefore, the Eagles always lose against the Bears, not in general, but against the Bears. So that is a more specific induction. You see here that we're using prior knowledge, and we use that prior knowledge to then infer or induce new knowledge. Now, people are reasonably decent at this, but they also make some fairly systematic mistakes with it. So for example, if I ask you the following: which cards should be turned over to test the rule if a card has a vowel on one side, it has an even number on the other side? And I'll tell you that there's 2 cards that you need to turn over to test that rule. So if a card has a vowel on one side, it has an even number on the other side. The obvious one we need to turn over is card E, because that's a vowel, and it should have an even number on the other side. Now, most of you, however, are probably thinking that the other card we should turn over is the 4. However, that's incorrect, because the rule does not state if there's an even number on one side, then it has a vowel on the other side. It doesn't say anything about that at all. It just says if it has a vowel on one side, it must have an even number on the other side. So the only way to test this rule is actually by trying to disconfirm the rule. And if we want to disconfirm the rule, we should actually flip over card number 7. Here is an odd number. If the rule is true that a vowel is on one side, it must have an even number on the other side, then if this is an odd number, there should not be a vowel on the other side. So we flip over 7 in order to see if we can actually disconfirm the rule. So this is hard for people to do because they tend to want to just confirm rules that they already have rather than disconfirming them. So the E card is easy because that is a way of confirming the rule, but the 7 card is much harder because people tend to just want to confirm it. There's confirmation bias, and instead they actually are having a very hard time in disconfirming it. Now, this kind of confirmation bias is important and actually happens in much more important situations than flipping some cards. So people sometimes have a hard time solving a problem because they are inclined to confirm instead of disconfirm rules. And in line with this, in real life, people tend to focus on events that actually confirm their already existing beliefs rather than looking at events that actually contradict them. And of course, this is a very fundamental part of things like, well, pretty much any ism, racism, sexism, and so forth, where people will find cases that confirm the rules that they have already in mind and rather ignore cases that actually disconfirm the particular ideas that they have in mind. This is all related to inductive reasoning because, for example, in those cases, you may think, okay, a crime was committed at night in this particular neighborhood. We're going to assume that the perpetrator must be of such and so particular composition. And that's all based on inductions about previous cases. So sometimes inductive reasoning may help us, but sometimes it's also a pretty dangerous kind of thing where we actually need to keep ourselves in check by not just falling trap to confirmation bias, but spending some more cognitive energy to actually disconfirm rules as well.